Manchester United will start as strong favourites when they take on Southampton in the EFL Cup final at Wembley on Sunday afternoon. But, if the history of the competition can teach us anything, upsets can and do happen. There have been a number of surprise results at Wembley down the years, and we celebrate some of them here. 1967 Queen's Park Rangers 3-2 West Bromwich Albion. The League Cup, started by Football League chief Alan Hardacre as a distraction from those newfangled midweek European competitions, got off to an inauspicious start with many of the leading clubs boycotting its early years. Gradually, interest developed, and the decision to stage the final at Wembley from 1967 onwards helped give the League Cup some respectability. Mind you, the 1967 final saw 3rd Division Queen's Park Rangers take on 1st Division side and defending champions West Brom before a crowd of 100,000. And it would be the underdogs' day in a stirring second-half comeback after a double from Clive Clark before half-time had the Baggies in complete control. Roger Morgan gave Rangers some hope before Rodney Marsh equalised 15 minutes from time. Then, the appropriately named Mark Lazarus completed QPR's revival from the dead in the 81st minute, to the delight of the vast majority inside Wembley. QPR were the first third-tier side to win a major trophy in England, but because they weren't in the top flight, they were barred from entering the European Fairs Cup the following season. 1969 Arsenal 1-3 Swindon Town, a 3rd Division team stunning a top-flight side. It happened once, but surely never again? Well, you'd be wrong. Just 2 years later and it was Arsenal falling victim to the indomitable spirit of the underdog. Knowing no other way of playing, Swindon went for all-out attack despite the stinginess of Arsenal's backline and a quagmire of a pitch churned up by the Horse of the Year show held at Wembley the previous day. Roger Smart opened the scoring on 35 minutes following a comedy of errors from the Arsenal defence, and they had chances to seal it before Bobby Gould levelled just 4 minutes from time. Surely Swindon would now capitulate in extra time? Not a bit of it. They outlasted and continued to outplay the Gunners, with Don Rogers writing his name into folklore with 2 decisive goals. Again denied access into the Fairs Cup, Swindon received the consolation of a place in the brand new Anglo-Italian Cup. 1972 Stoke City 2-1 Chelsea. 109 years into their existence and Stoke City still hadn't claimed a major trophy. Nobody gave them much hope here either, against Dave Sexton's Chelsea side, who'd won the FA Cup in 1970 and the European Cup Winners' Cup a year later. But Chelsea's additional big match experience counted for nothing as the Potters finally had their day of glory in front of 35,000 travelling fans. They stunned Chelsea just 5 minutes in when Terry Conroy capitalised on some defensive hesitation following a Peter Dobbing long throw to score. The Blues levelled just before halftime when Peter Osgood pounced on an Alan Bloor mishap, but midfielder George Eastham, aged 35, proved Stoke's hero by firing the winner 17 minutes from time. Their goalkeeper Gordon Banks then produced another fine Wembley display to keep Chelsea out, meaning Stoke finally had something shiny to place in the Victoria Ground trophy cabinet. 1980 Wolverhampton Wanderers 1-0 Nottingham Forest. Brian Clough's Forest had something of a love affair with the League Cup around this time, having beaten Liverpool in the 1978 final and then retained the cup by defeating Southampton 3-2 the following year. Also the reigning European champions and on course for another, Forest were strong favourites against fellow First Division side Wolves, who'd come a lowly 18th the previous season. But there had been worries when Wolves managed to book Forest's lucky London hotel and Clough's players were distracted by the upcoming second leg of their European Cup quarter-final with Dynamo Berlin. They trailed 1-0. The decisive moment came on 67 minutes when goalkeeper Peter Shilton and centre-half David Needham collided under a long ball and Andy Gray strolled in to score. Forest got the defeat out of their system very quickly, going on to win 3-1 in Berlin en route to another European triumph. 1986 Oxford United 3-0 Queen's Park Rangers. Both of these teams were playing in the First Division, but Oxford United, newly promoted, were fully engaged in a relegation fight at the time of their Wembley visit, while QPR occupied the relative safety of mid-table. What's more, QPR had reached the final after a thrilling semi-final with Liverpool, denying the Reds the chance to win a domestic treble that still hasn't been accomplished. Oxford were great going forward but couldn't defend, and more than a few pundits predicted a one-sided QPR victory. In the end, the opposite happened as form was thrown out of the window. Trevor Hubbard fired Oxford into a first-half lead from a tight angle, before Ray Houghton rounded off an eye-catching move for the second 7 minutes after the break. Jeremy Charles added a third to round off a decisive win with a real flourish, and it was a record score in a single-match League Cup final until Manchester United thrashed Wigan 4-0 in 2006. 1988 Luton Town 3-2 Arsenal. The captivating excitement of this final was lost on Arsenal fans, who saw their side capitulate in the dying moments to a Luton Town team making their first League Cup final appearance. One of the most vivid chapters of Nick Hornby's Fever Pitch describes his utter misery as Arsenal fall victim to a stunning late smash and grab. Luton led early on through Brian Stein, but looked on course for victory after 2 goals in 3 minutes from Martin Hayes and Alan Smith. Then things started to go wrong, with Nigel Winterburn seeing his penalty saved by Andy Dibble. That energized Luton, who equalized through Danny Wilson with 8 minutes remaining. Mere seconds remained, when Tony Adams fouled Stein. From the resulting free kick, Stein scored the winner. Arsenal had blown it. 1991 Sheffield Wednesday 1-0 Manchester United. Remember when trophies were a novelty for Manchester United and not merely expected? Well, that was them back in 1991, when Alex Ferguson was finally starting to forge a winning side. They'd won the FA Cup in 1990 and hungry for more silverware as they took on Wednesday in the 1991 showpiece. They were on course for another final, too, with a 3-1 first leg lead over Legia Warsaw in the semi-finals of the European Cup Winners' Cup, a competition they would go on to win. Ferguson's side had also beaten Liverpool, Arsenal and Leeds United en route to the final and were understandably favourites against Second Division Wednesday. But Ron Atkinson was determined to get one over his former club, and they did just that thanks to John Sheridan's brilliant half-volley shortly before half-time. I read the critics saying Wednesday were the better team, but that's nonsense. They were never in the game. It was just the press pandering to Ron Atkinson. They just liked the line of a former manager beating his successor, said Ferguson afterwards. 1994 Aston Villa 3-1 Manchester United. Fast forward 3 years and Atkinson would gain yet more revenge over Manchester United, this time with Aston Villa. Like Liverpool in 1986, United were chasing the domestic treble, with a commanding lead in the Premier League title race and solid progress in the FA Cup. They would go on to win both, but were to be disappointed here. Villa led after 26 minutes when Dalian Atkinson scored and United struggled to find their rhythm. Accordingly, it came as little surprise when Dean Saunders doubled the lead 14 minutes from time. Though Mark Hughes set up a grandstand finale, a stoppage time penalty from Saunders settled it once and for all. Atkinson took great delight in denying Ferguson the Triple Crown, but the subsequent years would prove barren for Villa compared to United. 2011 Birmingham City 2-1 Arsenal. An upset that most fans will recall occurred 6 years ago when heavy favourites Arsenal were stunned in the final minute by a Birmingham side heading for relegation to the Championship. Birmingham led after 28 minutes when Nikola Zizek flicked home a header following a corner, but Arsenal had equalised before the break when Robin van Persie volleyed home an Andrei Arshavin delivery. The sides traded blows until, in the 89th minute, a calamitous mix-up between goalkeeper Wojciech Szczesny and defender Laurent Koscielny allowed Obafemi Martins a straightforward tap-in.